Yeah, I think he'll win one. I do. I think he'll win another major. I think he'll get to 16. I don't know what it'll be. I agree with Mike. I think it'll be the Open.
I hope so.
Well, you don't, mate. You're the pessimist around here. Me, Mike, and Liam. When Tiger hears this podcast, mate, he'll be saying, you can jog on, mate. We're getting way off passes.
Right, episode 3. We've got Josh, Liam, and we've got a guest. This is Mike Carroll. Mike Carroll's Fit for Golf. You might have seen him online. Mike, I'll let you introduce yourself quickly.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me to come on your podcast, guys. I appreciate it. So, yeah, as you said, my name is Mike Carroll. I run the business Fit for Golf, which is a physical training it's a company that is about physical training for helping golfers get in better shape for golf and life, essentially.
I stumbled across your account, and it was during COVID, and I know that me and you had messaged, and I'd wanted you on the podcast the first time we started before Josh took our 3-year sabbatical, and it just never came to anything. So I'm really, really chuffed to have you on with us tonight. So thanks for coming on. You're actually in the sunny background there. You're in California, and it's really miserable weather where I am. I don't know about the rest of you.
Yeah, it's appalling here in Liverpool.
Same detail, unfortunately.
Yeah, UK summer. Bet you don't miss them, Mike.
No, definitely not. Although the weather in Ireland has been extremely good for the last month or so. Lots and lots of sunshine, very little rain.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I was up in Bray, near Dublin, Bray this weekend, for a golf trip, and it was absolutely stunning. It was like being abroad, especially because it's Euros there as well. You probably feel like you're on holiday. Yeah. It was good though. Yeah.
Did you hit any decent shots?
Honestly, no. I genuinely thought I'd go there with. So my handicap, Mike, is my index is 18, and I've been playing golf for. So I'm 26 now. Liam's 33. Trish, you're 32. We've all been playing golf since we were about 15, and they're all off single figures, and I'm still off like 18, 19, 20, and it's just a sport that I can't get along with. So I went there with high hopes, and I didn't hit one good shot. Good shot. I came in with 17 points one day and 25 the next.
I think, Mike, the context Mike needs to know is your worst nightmare, basically, Mike. You are going to be dealing with people that are really committed to golf, committed to their game, committed to improvement. Josh is the polar opposite. He thinks that he knows what he needs to do, and he's had close to zero progress so far.
I'd say I'm quite a good customer for Mike, because I'm all about trying to hit it further, Mike, and obviously I know that you.
We can talk after. Yeah, we can talk after. We can be friends.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I did. I think we played. Is it Blaine Row? Do you know many courses around that way?
I know some of the more popular ones, but it's kind of decent distance away from where I grew up, so I wouldn't know like the smaller ones that well.
Look, Blaine Row was one, and then Powers Court.
Powers Court is very popular. Yeah. I haven't played either of them, but I've heard a lot about that.
Great tracks, honestly, it was absolutely beautiful. Some of the best courses I think I've played in ever. Really, it was up. But yeah, courses were good. Golf was bad. Same story as usual.
That's all right.
Yeah, people are going to be saying as well that the company was bad as well if they had you on the trip as well.
Yeah. Well, it was actually it was a mix. So I think we were the youngest there, 25, and it went up to 82 years old. I think the eldest guy on there was. So it was actually good crack playing with some of the older guys on the second day, but we got drunk under the table. Like they can drink. They can put them down, man. They really can.
Am I right in saying I watched the video the other day? Was it a testimonial that someone works with you, Mike? Haven't you got someone that's like in their 70s?
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy's pretty inspirational. That's Paul Brumley is his name. He might be 78 now, but yeah, he contacted me probably 4 or 5 years ago now. And yeah, I just wanted to do something like for his golf, but almost more so for his health. And when he thought he could combine them, he was sort of interested. But in that time frame, he's logged well over 1,000 workouts in the app.
Wow.
He's lost about 70 pounds of body weight, and come off a lot of like medication he was on for different, health issues. And he's gotten a lot better at golf too. Like he lowered his handicap from 16 to 8 and probably gained about 30 yards in distance. Yeah, and just in way better condition for life. Kind of, whatever about improving a lot at golf, he's just way healthier, has a much better, health prognosis for the future years, which is good. And it's helped mentally as well, getting sort of more fit and able at that age makes a big difference to sort of your everyday tasks and that sort of thing,
I've got a question for you, Mike. So obviously when Tiger Woods came onto the scene, he sort of he had an impact in the sense that he brought a new level of athleticism to the game of golf. But even after that, I feel like now is an even bigger. The game now relies upon it even more so than when he first came onto the scene. Do you see that as well? And it seems like everyone, you see John Daly and David Duval, at that time they weren't really putting any work in, but now it seems like everyone is in the gym before a round. You saw Scotty Scheffler rock up in the US Open, he had a gym bag and stuff. Do you feel like it's at a different level now?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you look at, a lot of sports that have become, say, professional in more recent times, like I almost liken it a little bit to professional rugby in Europe. Like in Ireland, I don't know exactly how long ago rugby became professional. I think it was like maybe 20 or 30 years ago. But the difference you see in the players, if you go back and watch matches in say like 10-year spans or whatever, like the type of people that are playing are very, very different. And I think basically what happens when a sport becomes professional, or not becomes professional, because golf's been professional for a long time, but I think the ability to make a really good living from golf has changed a lot over the last, 10, 20 years, because there's so much more money in it. And you have way more kids who are growing up with the idea of, like, I'm going to be a professional golfer. So where I'm going with that is they're exploring all avenues that are helpful for performance. Like you can pick out physical training as one of them. And obviously we can see that visually when we look at players on TV. You can see that they're in better physical condition. But it's going to be the same with things like sports psychology. There's going to be way more players working with those that were in the past. Players have access to like way, way smarter and well-informed engineers who are helping them with their equipment. They're working with stats guys, who are mining through all the ShotLink data and coming up with strategies that might save half a stroke a round or something like that. So it's just, physical training is one of them, but players are going down basically every avenue they can to try and improve performance. Whereas in the past, I think it was a case of, not that no one was interested in this stuff, but I think it was more a case of like, let's play and practice lots of golf and see how good I can get basically. Whereas now it's way more of like, you hear the players talking about it, like the team approach, like, oh, we did well this week or whatever, like people weren't saying that like back 30 years ago, So yeah, that's what I would think there. And then the other thing that I think is changing, it is changing, is because golf is a lot cooler now and there's a lot more money in it. Like kids who are, say, who would have before chosen maybe basketball or football or baseball in the US because they were athletic enough, are now maybe choosing golf as their first pick because golf is cooler,
Yeah.
So it's not just the training side of it. You actually have like better raw athletes that are taking golf seriously from a younger age. And I think that's going to kind of continue to be the case a little bit,
Yeah. How many people, Mike? So I know that you were at the US Open and we had Cal Morris on our first season. And we also had, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but we had Zach Gould, who's...
I know Zach, yeah.
Yeah, so Zach, we had Carl, Zach, and now obviously talking to you. So at things like the US Open, how much of an entourage do the top players have? Because if someone's working with you and someone's working with a mind coach, you're talking about a team. What's expected from your top golfers, like your Rory, your Ram? How many people do they have in the background?
I'd say it's a little bit different for all of them, but it wouldn't be, I would say, unusual for some guys when they're there to have obviously a caddy, then they're going to have a swing coach. Some of them will have a different putting coach to a swing coach. That's reasonably common. A lot of them would have a physio with them, more so than a trainer. It's probably less common for trainers to travel, but some people's physio is also their trainer. I'm sure some of them have a psychologist with them. Although some people, I think, tend to do their work with the psychologist like off-site, on weeks off, or it's more remote and things like that. And then some of them probably travel with a chef. So it could be 5 or 6 that are, I would say, like directly related to some aspect of like coaching or performance. But then the real top guys are probably going to have a manager there. They might have an agent if they're different people, and they're not going to be directly there with them, but all the players are going to have access to whatever reps are in the equipment truck as well. Like the thing is, like, some of them just bring some buddies. Like some of them just have like friends. It's almost like the show Entourage. But yeah, you could easily have maybe 5 people, I guess, that are directly related to performance, maybe, and then you might have like a manager or an agent or something like that. But then there's other players who literally just travel with their caddy. Like that's not that uncommon either. There might be guys with a caddy and a coach or something like that, So yeah, that's kind of the mix of it.
I suppose, so I've seen this sort of type, because I like.
Actually, sorry to interrupt. One last one that I forgot about for the top guys. They might also have security.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know if they bring them. I don't think they bring them themselves. Maybe the real top guys do, but definitely like the real top players or the real, let's say, notable players, like some of them had 2 police officers or 1 police officer assigned to them while they were on the grounds, just for, I guess, like just in case, essentially. So like, yeah, there can be a lot of people hanging around.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you said in terms of golf being more of a sort of performance sport now as opposed to like a long walk. But obviously, I was born in 1997, so I missed Tiger coming onto the scene. I don't remember. Obviously, you and Tristan, Liam, and yourself will remember him sort of changing that game. But how much of an impact? When I think of long hitters, obviously you got your Rorys and stuff, but they've always sort of risen to the top, and I've never really realised how much of a bonus hitting far is until I watched Bryson DeChambeau win the US Open and the stats that they put behind that. Is that something you've delved into before as well? Is that the reason you're on a journey yourself to sort of, I think, is it? Are you trying to chase cruising at 120 mile an hour clubhead speed?
Yeah, like I'd kind of be around there at the moment. But yeah, I definitely enjoy trying to push the speed up. I think where the change in golf with the appreciation for length came is like that. The best players in golf have actually always been really long. Like no matter how far you go back, like Hagen, Snead, Hogan, Nicklaus, Woods, like any of the real top players in each generation, like they've all been very, very long hitters. But when it became, I guess, more obvious is when Mark Brody introduced his strokes gained analytics. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Mark Brody. So he wrote a book called Every Shot Counts. I'm not sure what year it was released. I'm going to say maybe 10 or 15 years ago at this point. I can't remember. Probably longer, maybe 15 years or so. And basically, I don't want to give him the wrong title. He's essentially a maths professor in Columbia University, I think with a specialization in statistics. And he's a really, really avid golfer, loves golf. So he put his, brain power essentially to work on digging through the analytics of golf and came up with statistics to replace like fairways in regulation, greens in regulation, putts per round, because he wanted to be able to do a better job of isolating the impact that each element of golf had on separating golfers' scores. And when he did that, it became very clear that like, oh wow, like if this player could hit their second shots from this much closer to the green, it's worth X amount per round, which might not sound like that much. But then you have to factor in that each tournament is 4 rounds, and then a season is, maybe 20 or 25 events. And you're like, okay, that actually could be worth like $500,000 or $1 million or $2 million or 20 spots in the rankings to, this, hypothetical player. And that really, really caught on with the players, Then people will talk. I don't like talking about it that much, but it's definitely a thing. Like a lot of people will talk about how the modern ball and the modern driver are so much more forgiving than the old school ball and driver, that it's way easier to actually swing at it as hard as you can. And your mishits are not nearly as bad, which is definitely true. But like, I don't think Greg Norman, Jack Nicklaus, Ben Hogan were holding back a whole lot either. They were still the most skillful drivers, which is what you see now with like, let's say the top drivers at the moment, like Rory, Ram, Scotty, these guys. There's guys just as fast as them, but they're not as skillful, so they can hit it as far and as hard, but they get into a little bit more trouble. So the advantage is nullified a little bit, So yeah, that's what I would say the biggest thing is. Like Tiger, definitely, like, especially for like the masses watching on TV, like, man, Tiger's able to drive it over those trees, carry the corner of the dog leg, and really opens up the hole. That's obvious when you're watching it on TV. But what's less obvious is if two guys hit it down the fairway on a, say, pretty straightaway hole, and if they're playing with each other for 4 days in a row, and one guy is 12 yards past the other guy, it's likely that if they have the same quality of approach play, it's likely that the guy who's 12 yards closer is going to be hitting it marginally closer to the hole on the good shots, maybe missing the green slightly less. So he might make a couple of more birdies from being a little bit closer to the hole, a couple of less bogeys because he's two putting rather than trying to get up and down. And magnifying that over, or kind of extrapolating that over the course of a season or a career, adds up to huge differences in money and points.
Yeah.
That's what I think the big thing is there.
Essentially just optimizing their game.
100%. Definitely.
So to bring that down to like the amateur level now, in terms of the way you approach a new client, are your exercises and your workouts sort of tailored towards the golf swing as a sort of generic activity, if you like, or are you able to tailor the swing to what you might be working on? Because obviously you've got the fitness side of things, and then you've got some players, especially if they're sort of really keen and into their game and want to work on their swing and improve their swing, you've also got the coaching side of it. So how do you tie them in together? If you could be working on your takeaway, you could be working on your speed, you could be working on your rotation. Do you facilitate that as well?
So I focus almost entirely on the physical preparation side of things. So like the physical training, whether that be like essentially like mobility, strength, and power. a lot of people will be surprised when they look at the programs in that the vast majority of the exercises in the programs, especially the ones working on building strength, aren't that different or different at all to ones you might see in a program that are for people playing other sports. It's kind of a separate topic, but if you try and have all of your exercises in the gym resemble a golf swing, you'll actually have a pretty hard time getting stronger and more powerful for long periods. Because if you think of how you can actually load an exercise that resembles a golf swing, you run out of options pretty quickly. Like you can use maybe like a cable machine or something like that, or, a band. Okay, you can throw some medicine balls, but if you kind of work backwards from that a little bit, and it's like, if I just help somebody get way stronger legs, a way stronger midsection, and a way stronger upper body, and I make sure they have the mobility to swing the club, will that transfer? Like, will that show up when they're swinging a golf club? And the answer is 100% yes, because when you look at athletes from other sports who transfer to golf and have never done a golf specific workout in their life, their speed is through the roof. Like, and that's with swings that are nowhere near, dialed in technically, So to answer your question, it was a really good question. I focus almost entirely on the physical training side of things. A lot of people will be surprised with how generic most of the training looks in terms of gaining strength and power. Where it resembles the golf swing a little bit more is in the mobility work, because obviously you're going through like ranges of motion and movements that are quite unique compared to other sports. Yeah. Like, for example, I'll have a golfer and a rugby player are both probably going to be working on lower body strength with things like squats or leg presses, but I'm not going to have a rugby player doing like the same type of mobility work that a golfer might need, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially, if you've like a rugby prop forward, it's like, he doesn't need to have great like thoracic mobility or neck rotation. Like, you're trying to build him into a brick, essentially, And then I am super interested in the swing mechanics side of things. Most of my like study in the last, I would say 3 years or so, has been much more around essentially how speed is created from a swing perspective as opposed to the physical perspective. I don't like coach people on that, and I don't try and provide programs for it in the app, but I've used it a lot in my own game, and it really, really helps for when you're talking to either coaches or players that are very keen, like you were saying, and it's like, yeah, I understand what you're talking about. And that's kind of like, I guess, an area of coaching that a lot of people don't really do, like trying to merge, let's say, S&C, strength and conditioning, and golf swing coaching, because it's probably hard to get really good at both of them. And you'd essentially have to almost do, like, if you wanted to have legitimate, say, credentials or qualifications in both, you'd essentially need to study like 2 different courses almost, but definitely very interested in it. The technique side of stuff is really, really important. And then the kind of only input I would say I have in like the actual golf side of things for a lot of players is how and when they do, like, let's say, their speed training. So in terms of actually making golf swings where they're trying to go as fast as they can, which is definitely a valuable part of it. So giving them advice on how to time that around when they're doing their gym work, and how to time it around when they're practicing and playing. And that's especially important for like the tour players who are trying to make the absolute most use out of their time. For amateurs, it's usually like do a little bit at the end of a range session or at the start of a range session for, 10 minutes or something. If you go to the range 2 or 3 times a week, suffices pretty well.
Are you also an advocate for these? I think I've seen a lot of the tour players who use, is it Whoop or Whoop watches and Apple watches and stuff like that, and sort of regulating?
Not really, to be honest. I actually did a podcast on my podcast with a guy called Brandon Marcello, who is like an independent, essentially like researcher into fitness wearables. And essentially his kind of takeaway line from the talk was that the value of these tools are, especially if you're trying to use them to see like how fatigued you are, like when you should train hard, when you should rest and things like that. I'm not talking about like counting steps or tracking your average heart rate. Like that's fine. That's for like general health stuff.
Yeah.
It's really nice that way. But in terms of like actually, I would say like guiding scheduling or making decisions about when you should train or shouldn't train, essentially like his takeaway was that these devices are not yet accurate enough to actually be worthwhile listening to for dictating a training schedule. And where he said they are valuable, and I think this is what I have seen too, is that if they encourage people to alter their behaviors to like a healthier lifestyle, then they probably have value. But in terms of the actual data, he'd be very, very slow to encourage people like to use it, especially like some of the stuff that Whoop is measuring. Nobody knows how they're calculating that number, like the strain number and the recovery number, and they don't release their algorithms. So like, yeah, there's definitely question marks over exactly what it's calculating and what it can tell you. And then there is issues too, like measuring HRV with a wrist strap isn't great. Trying to measure sleep with something on your wrist is tough. Yeah, like I'm definitely not an expert on all of them. That's why I interviewed someone who is. And that was kind of his overarching takeaway was that in 10 years or so, they might be brilliant. Right now, what they're useful for is if they encourage people to change their behavior to healthier lifestyle habits that we all already know about, great, but don't allow the data like upset your training week or, you know, like I do not want the PGA Tour player waking up, checking his Whoop and saying, oh shit, like my recovery was bad, but guess what? I tee off in an hour and a half. Or, you know what I mean? Or I actually feel pretty good. I'm due to do a workout today. Whoop is saying I'm slightly under recovered. So this is my chance, like this week, to do my training session. Am I going to skip it? Like, I think that's where they can get a little bit problematic, you know? And the other thing that's interesting too is if you look at who has adorned Whoop, there's been a lot, like you see some of the golfers wearing them. To my knowledge, there's yet to be a sports science department of like a professional sports team implement them. Like teams that have in-house sports science departments, say like professional soccer, Australian rules football, rugby, international Olympic committees. I haven't seen any of them like implement them. You know, what I have seen is athletes who are probably getting paid a truckload of money by Whoop to have them on their wrist or bicep when they're playing on TV, you know. But like I have heard people, I do know people who are like, oh, since I got the Whoop, I'm way more cognizant of what time I go to sleep. When I stop eating in the evening, like I don't have as many beers. It's like, okay, like we all already know that stuff is good for us. If you need the Whoop and you want to pay whatever the monthly fee is to keep you on top of it, it's fine. But I don't think like the data is something that I would use to structure a training week, you know?
Yeah.
You absolutely smash the ball, Mike. If people go on your Twitter and have a look at your swings, you absolutely hammer the ball. I told Liam before you came on that your swing is like, it looks great. So are you an actual good golfer? What's your handicap?
I'm just under scratch at the moment. So my exact handicap is plus 0.3 right now. I've kind of hovered between +2 and 1 for the last, I guess 2 years or so that's kind of been my range basically.
How often are you getting out?
I'm lucky in that I can put a decent amount of time into practice and play. So I don't have any kids, and I'm self-employed. So I generally play 18 twice a week. Like we're nearly halfway through the year and I've played, I think 26 18 hole rounds. We have 12 months of golf weather here as well, which makes a big difference. But pretty much every day that I don't play, I put an hour or 90 minutes into practice.
That's insane, that is, to be fair. I was talking to Liam about this the other day, and the golfer I had in mind was Gordon. Am I saying Gordon Sargent?
Yes.
And he's like 19 or something like that, or 18. I'm not sure how old he is. He's really young. And I was thinking, do you think do you see the baseline sort of swing speeds of players sort of across
I
golf
knew
general?
This would be related to swing speed or something. Honestly,
because I'm really good. Because now it seems like when obviously kids were growing up, when I was growing up as well, I was told, don't try and hammer the ball. That what you're trying to do is just try and hit the ball. But then I look at Tiger Woods and his dad saying to him, you can hit it as hard as you can as long as you stay balanced. Do you think now we're coming to a new generation of golfers where obviously I know we've touched upon training, but them swinging as hard as they can whilst learning to hit the ball when they're younger is probably one of the most impactful things that they can 100%.
do. 100%. Like without question. Like, and it's one of the things that the players who are slightly older on tour will tell you is different to when they were coming up to players that are coming up now that have either just gotten out on tour or, you know, kind of in their teenage years or in college. Like they understand the stats that we talked about earlier. They have launch monitors for really good feedback, which are also kind of like addicting because you're always trying to see if you can bump the speeds up. And also they're being encouraged. So like if you have a serious golfer that's like, I would say like in their teenage years or in college now, like you can be sure him and his buddies are working on like who has a higher swing speed, who has a higher ball speed. And where a lot of people kind of go wrong is they're like, golf has now just turned into who can smash it the furthest. And it's like, no, that's not what it is. It's that loads and loads of them are going to be able to smash it really far. And when that's the case, if you don't smash it really far, how are you going to beat all of them? You know what I mean? Like when there's that many of them, it's like, it's almost like a prerequisite. It's not that hitting it really far will guarantee that you're going to be one of the best golfers. It's that if you don't hit it really far, there's going to be so many of them that hit it really far and are good at everything else. You're just at a big, big disadvantage, you know? Like I know he's just going through like a point I saw brought up on TV recently, and I know he's won 2 majors and he's had a great career to date, but it's kind of an example of what we're talking about here is Morikawa is, by his standards, struggling a little bit at the moment. Like he's gone down to, I think, 19th or so in the world rankings. And, you know, he was a can't miss kid, you know, a couple of years ago. He's obviously still really good. I'm not saying Morikawa is not a world class golfer, but he's pretty much right on PGA Tour average for say swing speed, ball speed, distance. And he was paired with Scotty Scheffler for the first 2 rounds in the US Open in LA a couple of weeks ago. And what a lot of people don't realize about Scotty is he's actually picked up a lot of speed in the last 3 or 4 years. He's gone from like 116 to 120 club head speed, which is a difference in about like 6 miles an hour of ball speed, which is a lot at that level. And one of the things the commentators talked about, he was like, man, I did not realize how much further Scotty hit it than Morikawa. And the reason why Morikawa is able to be the player he is Morikawa is literally the best iron player we've seen since Tiger. But that's what he has to have. Otherwise, he can't compete with Scotty, Rahm, Rory, Cam Young, these guys. I'm probably missing a couple of others that are really, really long. But these guys that are up in the top echelons of golf that are bumping it past them. You know what I mean? It's like, there's lots of other guys that hit it the same distance as Morikawa, but they're also average iron players. So we don't ever really talk about them because they're not winning tournaments or at the top of the rankings. The reason why Morikawa can be at the top or near the top of the rankings when he's at his best, even though he's short, is because he's literally one of the best iron players of all time. Whereas if he didn't have that, he'd be way back. So it's the case of the next guy is coming up. It's like, oh, your tour average in distance. So how are you cracking into the top 25 or the top 20 or the top 10? Are you telling me you're going to be better than those guys by so much in something else that you can make up for that loss in distance? Like if Scotty is 15 or 20 past Mark Howe every time they pull a driver out, Mark Howe needs to be exceptional at doing everything else to match him for 4 rounds, you know? And some days he does because he's such a good iron player, but like that just gets really, really hard, you know?
Is there a consideration with these guys on tour though, in terms of one is being able to hit it far, but also knowing when to hit it far? And the reason I'm asking this question is because Jamie Donaldson is an honorary member of our local golf club, and he hosts a Pro-Am every year. And one of the members hit a drive on a par 5, and he left himself, it was a monster drive, and he left himself something like 56 yards into the pin. And Jamie Donaldson was scooting around in a buggy and stopped to watch him hit his second shot as a pro. Anyways, he ended up duffing it. And when he got into the clubhouse at the end, he said, look, it's really nice to meet you. It's just a shame that I duffed my shot in front of you. He said, out of interest, Jamie, what would you have done there? You know, I had 56 yards in. And Jamie said, well, you're considering you're able to hit it so far, you were a bit silly giving yourself a shot where you're playing a fiddly half swing, 3/4 swing. Always play for a full shot. So is there a consideration for that on tour, or do they just, presumably the tour guys are able to hit 56-yard shots, 57-yard shots just?
Yeah, so, like, obviously you can sound stupid very quickly disagreeing with, like, a tour player or former tour player. In terms of, like, statistics, almost everybody is better as they get closer to the hole, except for in a couple of very, very unusual scenarios, like with, you know, maybe like an extremely like challenging lie. Like if it was 56 yards off a very severe downslope with the ball below your feet, maybe then you're better from 90 or 100 than you are from 56. Or if you have, I don't know, there's actually not many. The other one would be like there are certain players, and it would be amateur players, who have maybe like the yips or really, really hard times with those half wedge shots. In those circumstances, then yeah, maybe there's a consideration for laying back. But in the vast, vast majority of cases, I don't know if you guys follow Lou Stagner on Twitter. He posts a lot of golf stats. He's posted about this a few times, and he's like, in general, like the overwhelming numbers of chipping and pitching, if it means you're short-sighted, but that's not the case with a 56-yard fairway shot. On tour, I would say it's similar. Like unless there's some, you know, unusual reason why the 56-yard shot in that case would be worse than laying further back, almost all the time they prefer to be closer. There is, some very, very unusual scenarios where being back might be better, but like they're really, really rare. Like one of the strongest like correlations or one of the most universal truths in golf is that in general, closer to the hole means better. Almost always. In terms of knowing when to hit it hard, like there's definitely still some strategy where players don't hit driver on every par 4 and par 5, because there are holes where the landing area where their drive would be ending up either like literally doesn't have any fairway there. You know, it might be a hole that has like, water running across it, or, there's like a drop off or something like that. Or it's just super narrow. But kind of a side point to that I think people often don't consider is when we're thinking about one player being, let's say, 15 or 20 yards longer than another player, we always visualize like a straight hole. We always think of a par 4 or par 5 going straight ahead where it's like, okay, I have 150 to the green, but Liam has 130 to the green. Like, okay, like that's cool, but it's not like, a huge deal. Sure, I prefer to be 130 than 150, but it's like, it's not massively changing the game. Where things like change a lot on tour, and this doesn't show up in the average driving distance statistics because those stats are taken from 2 holes per round only on flat holes to try and keep it standardized. When you start getting to doglegs or holes that have a little bit of an angle, that's when you really see the longer players can make a massive, massive separation from the shorter players. Like some of the lines that Rory takes on doglegs where he's literally aiming like at the green, even though the hole is, this big loop around, and he's like you see him lined up and he's not even in relation to like where the tee markers are lined up or where the fairway is. He's like lined up over these trees and he's carrying it like 315 or something, and he's cutting off the hole. But then you have a guy who say carries it like 285, which is pretty much like 288 is PGA Tour average. So let's say if you have a guy who's slightly shorter than average and he's carrying it like 280 or 282, he probably has to hit it down to the corner of the dogleg and now go up. So the 20 yards that Rory is longer than him, or the 30 yards Rory is longer than him, that could honestly be changed to like 60 based on the angle of the hole. Yeah. And like, that's where it makes a massive difference. Because if that's something like a par 5 and this guy is maybe, let's say, hitting a wood or he can't reach, but Rory's hitting like a 6 iron or what, like, I'm just, giving an example. If that happens a couple of times around, like that's 8 times a tournament. Like, that, like people often think of like the advantages of distance, like on a 1-hole basis. It's like, well, if I'm 120 out or 140 out on this hole, that doesn't really matter that much. If you're playing 72 of them, it does. You know what I mean? Like, we'll start, I know there'll be par 3s tied in, but like there's going to be some holes then when it's just a massive difference, like where you see some of the angles they can take, or even if it's like maybe some like really say severe fairway bunkers that certain players are like, if I hit driver, it's going to roll into this bunker. Let's say if the bunker is at 305, there's going to be some players in there like, if I hit driver, it goes in the bunker and I can't reach the green. So I'm hitting 3-wood, 275, and I now have 200 yards in. Whereas some of the players are like, cool, I can carry a 310. I'm hitting it over that bunker, and I now have 130 in, or something like that. That's where some of the like big gaps show up.
Mike, I want to ask you something before we move on to the quiz quickly. So you were born and raised in Cork, yeah?
Yeah.
And now you live in California. Where is it in California again?
Newport Beach.
Newport Beach, California. I'm gonna force you to give an answer. Someone's going on their dream golf holiday. Do they go to Ireland or do they go to California?
Oh, Ireland.
Yeah.
Easy, like, yeah.
That's a good one. I haven't seen Pebble Beach, but I went to California last year, and there was obviously we drove past some courses. They were nice, but looking at courses on Scotland and Ireland, and I suppose partly Wales because we are Welsh, we're biased, but I just think that there's something about British courses that I don't know if it's because we're British, but it appeals to me much more.
Yeah, no, I think when I went to Pebble Beach and I watched the US Amateur, it was amazing. It was a great experience, and obviously, with the millions of visitors that Pebble Beach has a year, you're asking for one person's opinion here, but it didn't feel as special as it would be. We played St Andrews, didn't we? And that's obviously the home of golf, and that's different again. But Pebble Beach just didn't. I don't know. It was just like a really pristine, amazing golf course, like a lot of the American golf courses are. When you come onto home soil here, there's something about them, isn't there? Knowing that they're links courses and you play them at the right times.
Like I do know people who have played Pebble Beach and they said that it did like live up to expectations and it was the best golf experience they've ever had in their lives. But yeah, like I would definitely pick playing some of the courses in Ireland or the UK. over coming to California for a golf trip. The thing here too, like, is that a lot of the courses that like you hear about and see on TV, they might be private clubs. So unless you've got friends in high places, you're just not playing them.
Yeah.
Whereas most of the clubs in Ireland or the UK, like, you can get on, you know?
Yeah. Okay, right, time for the quiz. Mike, you're going to need to know that Josh is undefeated so far. And although the rules kind of change weekly and we still don't know what the rules platform is, basically, long story short, is I kind of make up the winner at the end, depending on But Liam is 0-2 to Josh. Liam owes Josh 2 pints. Not sure how he's going to take payment from you, Mike, if he does beat you. But you're going to owe him a pint if he does beat you, right?
Well, PayPal's fine, Mike. You got that.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's international.
Right. Question 1. And it's just say it out loud, okay? So, what do Bill Murray, Adam Sandler, Shia LaBeouf, and Kevin Costner have in common?
Albany
Bill made a golf film.
Josh got there first.
Oh, no way.
Josh got there first. Yeah.
Listen, there might be a delay with Mike being in California. No excuse.
What were the golf films? This is just a separate question. What were the golf films?
Happy Gilmore.
Yeah.
Happy Gilmore. Legend of Bag of Ants, was that one?
Yeah.
Tin Cup.
No. Tin Cup, yeah. And the last one was Bill Murray.
Caddyshack.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, nice.
Point for me?
But, no, you don't. Question 2. This might catch people out. Who finished second at the Open at St Andrews?
Cam Smith. No, Cam Young.
Yeah, Mike, you're not going to get it because you gave an answer, right?
Incorrect.
Damn, I didn't know. I didn't.
I keep confusing myself with Cam Young and Sam Burns.
So you didn't get that either, Liam?
No.
Right, no points for anyone there then.
It was
Cam Young.
He eagled the last.
He
did.
He did what everybody wanted Rory to do. I was
sick in my stomach after that.
I was heartbroken. I was
dying hungover that morning as well. It was on morning time here, and we'd had a friend's wedding the night before, so it was not good for morale.
Yeah, you get a PTSD thinking back to it.
Oh, when tell you what was more devastating and more of a mental blow. It wasn't the last hole. It was the up and down Cam Smith put in on the 17th. That was just saying I'm a robot, right?
But I don't think anybody watching ever thought he was going to miss the putt. You were just like,
no,
he's holding perfectly. He's like, this is going in. Like,
do you know this is I think digress quickly here now, but it's 2 rounds now. I've been like, it was the US Open a couple of weeks ago on that St Andrews round where I just thought Rory'd get it done. I don't know what it is, but I'm hoping he'll do it at Hoylake.
I think he'll do
nostalgia.
I do. I think he'll do it at Hoylake.
Yeah, I presume he's
brewing up something and he's sort of getting closer.
Yeah, he's definitely getting better. The only thing I don't know about Hoylake, like, is I think, like, obviously winning any golf tournament is hard when all the best players are there. I think when they go to the British Open, there's a little bit more of a lottery element in it. I think because it's so different to what they play week in, week out. It's so bouncy. It's such a different style of golf. It's like, there's just more, I think, like, weird stuff can kind of happen. You know, like, I think Rory's best chances of majors are on, like, really hard, like, PGA Tour type setups, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But he's obviously won there before, like, but when people are talking about when's his next one, I never, even though he had a good chance last year, I just, for some reason, maybe it's my bad, but I never looked at the Open as the one where
you don't default to an Open.
Yeah, I think of, like, a US Open style course or a PGA course or Augusta. I'm like, yeah, I can see that. Like, you know?
Yeah.
Hopefully I'm wrong.
2024 Masters would be a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, question 3. How many points are needed to win the Ryder Cup?
12 and a half.
14 and a half.
No, so Liam, you
14.
What? Yeah, 14 and a half. No, you got it right.
It is 14 and a half.
Yeah. That's your first.
Did you say
point,
13
isn't
and a
it?
half or 14 and a half? Yeah,
14
he's not
and
had
a
a point in 3 weeks.
No.
I believe that as well. What did you say, Mike? 12 and a half?
Yeah, it's 14 and a half.
Mike looks like you're going to owe Josh a pint. I'm just saying.
I know.
How many points you got? We've got one each, haven't we?
Everyone's got a one each. No, actually, yeah. This is the thing. This is my point. I don't even know who's winning or not. That's why I kind of make it. Question 4. This isn't how many left-handed golfers have won. How many left-handed major wins have there been? I'm going to take your first guess as your answers.
6.
Okay.
8.
Okay.
Liam's quick 5-8.
11.
Okay. You're all wrong, so I'll let you all go again.
10.
9.
I'm just going to go 11. Be a
It's 10.
scumbag. Fudge! Is it Berber 2?
So
Nicholson.
you've got Bob Charles in 1963,
Oh, that's what I'm
Right.
missing.
and then
I'll
you've
be
got
forgetting.
Mike Weir.
Yeah, you got. I was
1,
going to say the
Bubba 2,
Canadian
and
guy.
Phil 6.
Yeah, and then the rest of them are Bubba and Phil. Yeah.
My first answer was for Masters. I shouted the Masters number
Yeah.
instead of majors.
Isn't that crazy? There's only been 4 left-handed major winners.
But if you think back, like we haven't had many good left-handed golfers.
No. I'm
You're
left-handed.
one, just. Yeah, and you're shit, mate. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a
Which proves
like-
Mike's point.
Right now, you have Phil, but he's like 52.
Yeah, Bobby McIntyre.
The guy Higo, Garrick Higo,
Yeah, got it.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
he's a good player. Like he won on the PGA Tour. Brian
Yeah.
Harmon.
Yeah, Brian Harmon.
I
It
think
is
that's,
Ash K. Batia.
Ashka Bhatia, yeah.
yeah, he's a lefty. Yeah.
He's yeah.
Maybe they're making a comeback.
Yeah, maybe. But what's
Let's hope
interesting
not.
about lefties is me and Mickelson are the same in the sense that we're actually right-handed.
Yeah, but you're just left-handed golfers.
Yeah.
I'd say I'd actually be curious to know what the rest of them are like.
Yeah, I
If they
think
are really.
I think when I was younger, I was obsessed with left-handed golfers, obviously, because I was the only one that was left-handed. And I think I Googled it at the time, and I might be wrong here, but I think Mike Weir is as well. It's either Mike Weir is.
Phil. It's Phil. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
you said like Phil, right? Yeah.
Phil, I think Phil is and Mike Weir, but also I think someone like one of the big players. I'm not going to bother guessing a name, but they're left-handed but play right-handed as well.
Oh,
So it's interesting, really, isn't it? Yeah. Question 5. So Liam's actually in the lead, then, isn't he?
Oh yeah, I think he is. Yeah, 2-1-1.
If I made a triple, this one is because this is where I'm going in the summer with the family. If I made a triple bogey on the first hole at Royal Lytham and St Anne's, what would my score be?
6.
Yeah, well done, Josh.
That was a shot in the dark. I just went for a par 3 start, which is unusual.
Starts with the par 3. It's a lovely golf course, but I can't help to feel that it's like, I've always hated it when golf courses start with par 3s.
Yeah, you don't want like a 5-iron.
No, in your hand, no. Okay, so that's a draw. I'm still going to call Josh undefeated. So, fair play to him.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I
Have you not
appreciate
got a sudden death question there?
No, because I actually quite like calling
Mike, have you got a sudden death question?
Let me think. I'll come up with a good one.
Okay, right. This week's debate. Frustratingly, Tiger Woods has pulled out of the Open. And as you'd always expect, there's always this now, like, when's he coming back? And he's meant to announce his return soon. For me personally, I know where I stand on this. But what I want to offer the debate is, should Tiger Woods return to that level of golf at all?
Yeah.
So you reckon yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out and say, I don't know anymore. I'm verging closer to no. And the reason for that is, I don't think he's ever going to reach that pinnacle again. And I know he doesn't need to reach our pinnacle. He's not doing it for us. But at the same time, every time he steps out on the golf course now, that image we had, that enigma that he's become just takes a hit every time, to the point where I'm like watching him limp off, and I'm like, Tiger, come on, pack it in now. Just we've had the best time with you as our hero. Now it's time to kind of, I don't know, is it even working for you anymore?
Go on, Mike.
No.
You.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna say no. Why? What was the question again?
Should Tiger Woods
Should he keep going?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. I'd want him carrying on with crutches. And when you say pinnacle, do you mean like the golfer who's playing in 2000, like the standard of golf, or win a major?
No, yeah, I would say yeah. I think he's won his last major, and if he does manage to return and he does win a PGA Tour event, which is special, I'm not saying, but how special is it really going to feel for us? Well, what do we want him to do? We want him to win a major.
I think he's a better chance of winning a major than a PGA Tour event, though.
Yeah.
I think he's a better chance of winning the British Open than any PGA Tour event.
Yeah.
And he might have a better chance of winning. He has a better chance of winning at Augusta, and he has a better chance of winning a British Open than he does a regular PGA Tour event.
Do you think he can still compete at Augusta?
If he's able to walk it, yes, because the only other reason he wouldn't be able to is if his body was in a way that wouldn't allow him to hit it far enough. But we know for sure that's not the case from his most recent return, because he was up at like 175 to 180 ball speed when he played in Riviera this year for the first couple of days, which is like above PGA Tour average. He's still a better approach play player than most of the PGA Tour. And like chipping and putting, to be honest, in majors is less important than it is in definitely putting is less important than it is in regular PGA Tour events, because there's so much more punishment for bad ball striking. So yeah, I do think he should keep going, when he can. Honestly, I wonder what Tiger's life is like without golf. If he feels like that if he doesn't have golf as something to work towards, I wonder what sort of headspace he's in and how his days are filled,
Yeah.
It's kind of like, you see the boxers coming back, and it's what's he doing coming back? Like, and it's like, well, what goes on in his life when there's no boxing, when there's nothing to train for, nothing kind of, keeping him in line.
To be fair, though, he's had quite the adventurous life, even while still playing golf.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what he might be trying to stay away from.
Yeah.
But I think, he said to himself, didn't he? Was it his last comeback where he just said, "Look, if I didn't think I could go out there and win, then I wouldn't be making this comeback." And I think as long as he thinks that he's able to compete with these guys on tour, then he's never gonna hang up his boots. You'll see him like Tom Watson, bloody in his.
I was just gonna say, like, Tom Watson nearly won the British Open. Like, Tiger is a far more likely winner of the British Open for the next 20 years than Tom Watson was when he nearly won it.
Yeah.
And we like, he won. It's not that, like, was it 2019 he won the Masters?
Yeah, 2019.
Like, it's
not that long ago.
Oh, but he's had more injuries since then. And what I would say, just to be pessimistic, is Tom Watson didn't win, did he? I wanted him to win desperately, but he didn't win. I just think
if you told Tiger, you're going to be in a playoff for the British Open, do you want to play? He'd say yes, it's worth it.
Oh yeah, of course. I think obviously, I mean, we joke and we say things like, "What would you give? What would you actually sacrifice to see Tiger winning in a major?" And embarrassingly, I think it's a lot. I would never have this conversation with my wife, because she'd probably be like, "What, you'd give up one of our two children to see Tiger win?" But the fact of the matter is, I just don't see it anymore. When it came to the US to the 2019 Masters, I was like, "No, you can't do it." But in my mind, I was like, "Come on,
but that's
prove me wrong." Now, I just genuinely, to come from where he's come from first and to come from where he's come from right now, I don't know, are we not just better off taking stock and going, wow, one of the best athletes ever, first sports billionaire, first person to transcend kind of what is a golfer, every memory we've got of him, and just go, thanks, Tiger. Like,
no,
let's not put
no, it's not that's not a choice. You haven't, I don't think you could say no, and you can say you don't think but that's not your choice. Because when he inevitably comes back now, he's going to play to the standard where it makes you think, do you know what, yeah, he could win another one. Like he has done.
Irrelevant of how he plays, his fans are too loyal. 3 of us around the table now have grown up watching Tiger. Tiger is the one for us who, if he's part of an event, then you have an extra interest in that event. Josh is someone who, like you said earlier, who sort of missed Tiger in his prime, but you're close enough to know what Tiger's done for golf. So
mine's
like,
Keegan Bradley.
By the time anyone's not interested in Tiger Woods, really, like Mike says, it's going to be 20 years down the line before anyone's kind of like, I'm not really bothered if he's playing in an event or not.
Yeah, I think he'll win one. I do. I think he'll win another major. I think he'll get to 16. I don't know what it'll be. I agree with Mike. I think it'll be the Open.
I hope so.
Well, you don't, mate. You're the pessimist around here. Me, Mike, and Liam. When Tiger hears this podcast, mate, he'll be saying, you can jog on, mate. We're getting money off passes.
This podcast will be, Christian's words will be the catalyst to him.
I'd like to thank you for the motivation.
Yeah, can you imagine?
His winning speech, his winner's speech.
Yeah. Do you know, I'd probably say to him that, listen, I've always been Team Phil.
Yeah, that'd be the worst thing you could say to him.
Do you think Phil will win another one?
Do I think Phil? Say again, Mike.
Do you think Phil will win another major?
Oh, do you know what? It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. I'm going to probably be pessimistic again and say no, but I think Phil has a better chance than Tiger. I think Phil Mickelson.
He came second in the Masters.
Yeah. I think he's genuinely someone because, and look at the work he's put into his body and ability and his shape to hit the golf ball. He, as a golfer, he's absolutely sublime. Because you look at his career, we had a question last week, I think, was it, of how many tour wins he has, and it was 45. That's crazy. In Tiger's era,
while Tiger was playing, yeah,
it's crazy numbers. So I don't know. I'd always watch out for Phil. I tell you what, if Phil was to win the US Open, that's something that I'd love to see.
Yeah. It's just, I don't see that now, to be honest.
No.
I don't think Phil would win another one. Like, he could, but they're just so hard to win, man. Like, there's people asking how many will so and so win when they talk about like Mark Howard, Steve, Rory, DJ. Like, they may never win another one. You know what I mean? Like, really, like,
well,
Westwood never won one. Fleetwood's never won one.
Yeah.
You know? Monty never won one. Like, it's like
Sergio.
Sergio won one.
Ages.
Whilst we're sort of talking about people winning majors, I don't think Rory will ever win the Masters. I hope I'm wrong, but I honestly think that the year he flunked it, was it 2012 or 13? I think that's etched too deeply in his mental.
Right, so
disagree.
Hold on. Tris, you pissed off Tiger, and now you've pissed off Rory. I'm not going to listen to these at all now. I think.
Yeah, I think that's a hard bet. Like, I'd like to see the odds on that. Like, will Rory win the Masters? Like, that's only once a year. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
He has how many more chances? Say he's 33. Does it say
realistic
chances are until he's maybe 46, 45? Would you say
10, 12,
10
13
or 12 chances? Like, that's.
You got to ask how good is his driving and how long is he going to be at that age? Because that's his bread and butter. You got to think.
I'd
is
say
he going to be?
Yeah.
Would you still say yeah?
Well, he's been getting longer. Like his speed's only been going up since his late 20s to early 30s. So I could see him keeping it where he is now until he's in his very late 30s and having lost very little, if at all, in his early 40s. Like I worked with Charles Howell for a little bit.
Yeah.
And like he was like 43 and 4 at the time, and like he hadn't lost any speed from when he was like 35.
Jeez, that's great. That's insane. My actual a quick question for you, obviously before your laptop goes out of charge, wrist, is given you're into the sort of fitness area of golf, how hard is it going to be for Tiger to get himself back to where we think he'll get to?
So what I think is most encouraging about Tiger, right, is when he was coming back, what I thought, like, and you know, we all see the list of injuries that he has. It's posted every time he's talked about a comeback. What I thought the case was going to be is that like Tiger would just be so broken that he'd be hitting it like 270 off the tee, and he'd be against the guys who were like 310, 320. But his distance was literally an advantage. Like he was hitting it as long as like Rahm and Scotty. He was longer than JT in speed. Like that's so like I think that like it's I'll put it this way. It's far easier to build up the ability to walk 4 rounds of golf than it is to swing a driver at 118 or 20 miles an hour. You know what I mean? Like we all know the skill level that's required to walk around a golf. Like fair enough, injuries are going to hamper that. But like that's way easier than like, oh, your body's broke. It would be like telling one of the guys on the seniors tour. It's like, okay, let's jack up the ball speed by 10 or 15 miles an hour. They're like, not going to happen. You know what I mean? But if it's someone coming back from a knee replacement or a bad injury, and it's like, do you think you can build up the capacity to like walk 4 rounds without pain? I don't know. Maybe. Like it's much more likely, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, guys, I think it's time for us to bow out episode 3. Mike, that's been brilliant. Thank you for taking the time. I know that's in the middle of your day as well, so we're thankful for that. And hopefully we'll have, you'll come on again with us in the future. It's been really insightful.
Yeah, it has been. And your app, Fit for Golf, is available on...
Yeah, so you can download it in the App Store just by looking up Fit for Golf. You actually need to create your account on my website, fitforgolf.app. And kind of what's worth noting for people there is I'm actually in the middle of having a new app developed. It's going to be the same idea, but just a way better platform and user experience. And that's going to be launched in November, hopefully. So the current app will be running until then. If anyone wants to sign up now, like there'll just be a crossover when that time comes. Like I don't need to worry about waiting or anything like that. But that's just something that's worth noting.
Yeah, we'll put the links to them and to your sort of socials and stuff in the things that we put out on our socials as well.
Perfect.
But yeah, it's good.
Right, that's it from us then.
Guys.
Josh, is there an episode 4?
Yeah, there isn't. I think so. Yeah.
Oh, nice one. So, yeah. Thanks, Mike.